Okay, everybody, this is Jim from FlopTurnRiver. Going to do a 25 no limit video, and we'll see how things go. I'm going to try and discuss a little bit about table selection and using your HUD. There's been some mention on it on FTR. At 25 no limit, we don't use our HUD too much if we can help it. Usually, I'll have a few extra settings on there that we won't be looking at this level. There's just no need for it. But we're going to start off with a little bit on table selection, and what we're going to do is we're going to look for the loosest tables we can possibly find at 25 no limit. It shouldn't be hard to find, even on a site like Stars. What I do is when I'm sitting in the Stars lobby here at micro limits here, which is the 25, if we change the stakes to show what we got, here's the 25 no limit tables down here, and now you have to sort through all the stats and try to figure out which is a loose table, which is playing the most pots. Big pots sometimes help my decisions. If there's a crazy table, it's going like, see, there's one here, $5 a pot. That's not too bad for 25 no limit. But what I normally do on Stars and on most sites is I switch it to players on the flop and make sure that the highest numbers are at the top. Now what it does is it actually scrambles all my tables, and at 50, 100, and 200 no limit, when you can do that, you can use more table selection and not necessarily play the stake you're at, but the best tables. So what I do is then I just scan down for the first 25 no limit table I can find with 5 players right there. That's got 52% in the lobby, and we'll slide our table in. And I will go to 2 tables. Obviously there's no seat on this table, so we will look again. And we just look around for at the top. We try to find a loose 25 no limit table. We scan down, there's another one right there, and we get a seat. Okay, and as usual, we always buy in for full, and my HUD stats will pop up soon enough. There's no need to get into them too quickly. What we do is I try to find the loosest tables to start with, and then I try to find the best players to play against too. It's what we're going to look for is we're going to look for loose passive players, or at least loose players with big stacks, and try to play against them. The problem we have here on this table, obviously I don't like it. What happens is we got a big stack to our left, another big stack to our left, and the people with position, we have no stacks at all. So it's actually a fairly bad table. So what I would like to do is, if I can, is get in this seat at least. So we check the name, Pytho 3. We're going to get off the table. We're going to go back into the Stars lobby, and we're going to try to get back on Pytho on the other side. It's a fairly loose table still. There's the big stacks. We'll take this side. Alright, buy in for a maximum. And that's what we're going to do. Now, we got some decent stacks here. As long as these players are loose enough and capable players, we should be able to extract some money from said players. What we're going to talk about as well, like I said, is using our HUD stats. One of the big arguments that goes on FTR and amongst a lot of people is whether HUD ruins poker for you or whether it allows you to make more money. And there's a firm belief that using Poker Ace HUD for low limits like this takes away your reads, takes away your ability to learn to play poker properly. And I would agree, if you're playing poker with 4 tables, 6 tables at 25 no limit, you're not learning to play poker, you're just learning to multi-table with a HUD, and it will cause you a lot of grief when you get higher into the limits. I'm now playing only 2 tables and 3 tables, trying to get better at my game because I've been a multi-tabling HUD user for the longest time. So what we're going to try and do is use our HUD for just what we need it for. That's game selection, finding the fish, and that's it. So we'll fold Ace-8 in the big blind. It's certainly not a hand worth playing. Well, we'll check it. And we're not going to go anywhere with this hand unless we get lucky enough that they let us draw to a decent hand. My HUD stats haven't popped up yet because I don't play Stars at these limits, so I really don't have a lot of stats on a lot of players. Typically, if you play at 25 no limit, you would get a lot of stats on a lot of the players, and hopefully you're keeping something as simple as a small fish list, and you can look for certain players that are on at certain times all the time that don't necessarily have to be losing players, but they're players that play to a style that you can beat all the time. Jack 9 in the big blind, we're not going to play. And like I said, we're going to I'll move to 2 tables, so it's a little more exciting in a minute. I'm just going to discuss a few of the stats that I use on HUD. Up here is my stats they'll pop up at five hands. All my player stats pop up at 5. It doesn't mean they're reliable stats by any means, but what it does show is that my HUD's running right. And you can get a player who's at 9 or 10 hands that hasn't played a hand yet, and it's obvious they're tight, and what they play will be a good hand. Or you can have a player that's over 10 hands, played 9, and it's obvious they're loose. But anybody who's played 2 hands or 3 hands or 4 hands over 10 or 12 hands when your HUD first pops, there's no information there, and it's not worth even looking at. King 9 on the button, I will open. The small stacks, I expect somebody maybe will want to play. But the problem with having small stacks in your blinds is you will get in some trouble because they'll play very weak hands and for their whole stack. I'm going to c-bet this. It's probably not a great board to c-bet on, but if this is his whole bankroll, there's a chance he's not going to play without a decent hand. I would not consider $2.70 and $8.35 smart short stacking player, especially at 25 no limit. They should have at least $10, and I'm guessing this is just money they've thrown in and they're playing. Good thing is we got another player that sat down now. He's full stacked, and we're hoping we can get a few decent players or decent fish type players at our table. Pocket 5s in the middle position is an easy raise up. The problem we have here is that the short stacks to our left don't have the odds, but if somebody in the blinds calls, we will have set odds. Otherwise, we're looking for a fold or a raise and c-bet and just take it down. We're not looking to make any major money with pocket 5s without hitting their set. Ace 8 under is not playable at any time. It doesn't matter what the table is. And let's hope everything else is good to go. 5-6 offsuit in the blinds. We will definitely fold that out. And there's my stats at 4. They're starting to pop up now. And if we can get the rest of the stats, you will see I have a lot of stats on my HUD when it pops up. I wouldn't suggest that 25 no limit playing these. This is my 50 and 100 no limit stats that I use, and even then I don't usually have them all up. It's the problem is I'm having right now my pop-up stats on PA HUD aren't working very well since Absolute changed their lobby, and it's a little too slow for my pop-up stats. So what I've done is I've taken a lot of my pop-up stats and actually just put them right on the screen for now. But if your pop-up stats work, it's good to have them in behind. King 10 on the button. We're not going to play this to a limp. It's a decent hand to have on the button. It's suited. I have a king. I'm going to raise it 4 plus the 1 for the limper. We have the position. We have button. There is a decent stack here, so we do have some good implied odds to play this hand. We flopped a gut shot hand, not even. Well, it's a decent gut shot. It's a jack. There's a runner flush in behind. We were at a pre-flop raiser, so against this short stack that did fold last time, we will bet again into the pot. Make it look like we decently want to play. Without a queen here, he can't necessarily call. He's called now, so I would assume he either has the flush draw or the queen. He could possibly have a jack 9, or this is an extremely weak bet. It could be either he wants us to raise over top of him and so he can get it all in, or he doesn't quite have much. I'm going to let this pot go. It's really not worth playing. A $1.25, maybe we'll call him. We'll see what we can hit in the end. Didn't really catch much. I expect him to push, and we'll just let it go, even though we do have decent odds. We don't really have anything bucking high. I didn't expect him to have much. We'll reload. Nothing major. Easy money to make back. I don't expect him to run anywhere with the $12 now. We'll fold that up, and here we go. Here's my HUD stats that finally popped. So what we're going to use here is we're going to use, by looking at our stats, these are small samples, I understand that. We're only trying to look for fish, and I'm only trying to show you guys. You guys, I would expect, would have more stats at the level you play at, especially if you play on a site like Full Tilt, Absolute, or any of these sites you can data mine if you're not American. What we're looking at here is the VPIP, pre-flop raise, aggression factor, and total hands. This here will tell me whether we have loose players to our left, to our right, what we're looking for. Right now, this is looking like they're semi-loose players at 38%. It's way too early to tell for sure, but they're not playing super tight, so their stacks are available. This guy here, as I said, see, this is 5 hands only, but he hasn't played a hand yet. So that tells me already he's not super loose. He's not